Welcome everyone to our channel, Make Sociology Great Again. Now, for today's topic, we're going to discuss something a little bit controversial. And the question that we're going to focus on today is, why would a married woman cheat? Now, I know some of you guys are talking about, I know some of you guys are thinking, why am I talking about women cheating when we know that men are the ones who are cheaters and men are the ones who are dogs, right? I know some of you guys are saying that. And research has shown that around 15 or so percent of men commit adultery, but research has also showed that about 13% of women commit adultery. So we're going to talk about that, right? Because we know that there's a lot of research that focuses on the adultery on the part of men, but there's not so much on the part of women, right? So we're going to do that today. And so the question that we're going to focus on is, again, why do women cheat, married women cheat, or women in general? And we're going to use two micro-sociological reasons and two macro-sociological reasons. So let's get into it. Now, before we can explain why would a married woman cheat on her husband from a micro and a macro-sociological point of view, we would first have to define what these terms mean. So micro-sociology focuses on the relationships that we as individuals have with other individuals. So one micro-sociology question would be, how am I influenced by my parents? How am I influenced by the relationships that I have with my parents? Because we know that the relationships that we have with our parents are extremely influential. Another micro-sociological focus would be, how am I influenced by my friendships, my friends? How do they influence me as an individual? Because again, we know that friends, peer groups are very influential. So those would be examples of micro-sociology. Now, let's get into macro-sociology. Now, macro-sociology focuses on how individuals are influenced and affected by institutions in our society, or how changes in the larger society affect individuals and individual behaviors. So macro means large scale. So some examples of macro sociology would be, how am I as an individual influenced by my religious belief? How does religion influence my behavior and my belief systems? Because we know that religion is extremely influential, particularly for people who define themselves as religious. Another example of macro-sociology would be, how am I influenced by what I see in the mass media? And when we talk about the mass media, we're talking about, radio, television, social media, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, all of those. And you're going to find out, because I'm going to make a video in a couple of weeks, how influential the mass media is. And so when I see stuff on TikTok or Instagram or whatever, how does that influence me as an individual? How am I influenced by that? And so that would be an example of macro sociology. Now that we understand the difference between micro and macro sociology, now let's answer the question. Now, from a macro sociological perspective, one reason why a married woman would cheat could be because of the influence of her friends. Let's say she interacts or she associates herself with a bunch of friends who are cheaters. They cheat all the time. Because of those interactions and associations, she may start to learn or she may start to believe that cheating is not so bad because all my friends do it. And so those would be, or that would be an example of how our friendships can influence our behavior. Another example on a micro-sociological level, why a married woman would cheat could be because of how she was raised. Let's say hypothetically she was raised in a household where cheating was the norm. She saw her mother doing it. She saw her father doing it. And so as a result of being raised like that, she has normalized, or she believes that cheating is not a big deal because that's how she was raised. That's what she saw growing up. And so those would be two examples of micro-sociology in terms of why a married woman would cheat. Now let's talk about two macro-sociological reasons. Now, one macro-sociological reason could be the fact that, again, she was influenced by social media. She was influenced by what she saw in social media. And again, I know some of you guys may say, well, that's a cop-out. But the reality is that, as I said earlier, social media is highly influential, and we are influenced by what we see in social media or on social media. So she could be influenced by, a TikTok video or movie or whatever, right? Another macro-sociological reason could be the fact that we now live in a society, we now live in a culture where adultery and divorce has been normalized. Historically, if you got divorced or if you committed adultery, it was, something to be ashamed of. That has now disappeared, or that has now dramatically lessened. And so now people have divorce parties. Think about it. Have you been to one? So people have parties to celebrate the fact that they're now divorced. And so the stigma has now been lessened. And so as a result of that, people may start to do things that they wouldn't typically do because, to them, there is no negative consequences in many ways, right? And so those would be examples of macro-sociological reasons. So now you have the micro, where you focus on individual interactions, and the macro, where you focus on institutions or larger changes in the society. Now that you guys know why a married woman would cheat from a micro-sociological and a macro-sociological perspective, I have a question for you guys, right? And at the end of these videos, I'm going to ask you guys a question because I want you guys to be able to apply this newfound knowledge, right? So that's a good thing. Now, before I get into the question, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this channel, and get your friends, your family, your coworkers, anybody to like, share, and subscribe. So let's get to the question. And the question for today is, what do you guys think are some other micro and macro sociological reasons why women, whether they're married women or women in general, cheat? Just respond in the comment section, and as always, be courteous, be kind to everyone in your comments. And finally, thank you guys. Thank you guys again, and let's make sociology great again. Thank you.